Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. You are tuned into the Leaders Unfiltered podcast. This is one of our earlier episodes, and we are so excited to be here. I am your host, Angela Alberty, and I am going to be interviewing the amazing Lizzie Parnell. I have known Lizzie for about a year now, and boy, is she the perfect person to have as a guest when it comes to the Leaders Unfiltered podcast. Lizzie, I think it's safe to say you're somewhat unfiltered. Yeah?
I would agree with you. Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. So we're going to be going through a lot of overarching areas when it comes to the external workforce and the contingent global workforce as it stands, especially in creating a constructive culture between different global regions and bodies, which I think is really at the premise of many different contingent workforce leaders out there. So lots to hop into from a globalization lens, especially with the navigation of certain cultural differences and the workforce strategies that are tuned to handling different workforces around the globe. We do have a fun chat GPT generated question for Lizzie. It is a theme that we want to try to keep up. Let good old chat GPT prompt a question for Lizzie on the spot. Definitely going to be taking a step back also and get to know her personally from a woman in the space and a mom in the space. And then we're going to be wrapping it up on where she's seen this industry come from and where do we see it going. So super excited to hop into some of these questions with Lizzie today on the Leaders Unfiltered podcast. But before we do that, Lizzie, 60 to 90-second overview. Tell us about yourself. I think you bring an interesting dynamic to the mix. You've been on both sides, on the buyer and the supplier side, but would love to know a little bit more about who you are and what you do now and really what's brought you to this stage in your career.
Sure. So almost 20 years ago, in 2005, I evacuated from New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, landed in Atlanta, realized I needed a job, walked into a staffing agency, asked them to help find me a job, and they did. They hired me as a recruiter, and then I moved into account management and sold local staffing. Have really done all of the versions of recruiting, including where I was doing international education recruiting, which kind of the global excitement, right? You know, joining the different regions together, and went to third-party MSP. Left and went back to MSP delivery for a huge staffing agency, national or international staffing agency. And now here I am. I'm running a program. We're an internally managed MSP, Generation Zero, and we have wasted no time trying to do all of the things and basically just trying to not even catch up. We're looking to leapfrog some of the folks out there in professional services and public accounting and make this the best program out there.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And I had no idea that you were a Hurricane Katrina evacuee.
It's coming up in 20 years, so it's been on my mind, but it's kind of a testament to, like, no matter where you are or what's happening in your life, you too can fall into the staffing world and never get out, right?
Yes. And the optimist in me says, like, really turning something that is such a traumatic and critical event in your life and actually have it be the leapfrog into where your career was headed.
Yeah.
Lots to say. I'm sure that you can give us a couple of 2 cents here. So I think where we can start with this is just really scratching the surface and talk to us about like the last 20 years that you've had and been in this space and how you've seen the role of contingent labor evolve over the years. Where do you think it's been and where, more importantly, like where do you think it's heading?
So I think that, you know, when I got started, it really was the temp world. And I think of the fill-in receptionist, right? Like the admin, somebody's going out on mat leave. And I think it also just speaks to the evolution of like the professional world and the professional landscape in general. The admin roles, there's still some, but really a lot of people are doing their own, their own expenses and their own travel. And what I've seen is where we've migrated to the non-employee role is actually a very critical lever for a lot of businesses in either maintaining staff, ramping up staff. I was in some light industrial programs and saw how contingent was truly kind of like one of the gears, right? Like busy season for a certain things coming up or a project for a certain client gets ramped up and suddenly you need to pull in 150, 200 people in the next week. And so this whole machine, this whole MSP machine really, I think, kind of got built on a lot of the light industrial / IT. And I think where we are now is, gosh, I'm really tired of people talking about Uber, but moving into this concept of maybe contingent still is important, but the idea of workers being providers of work who want to be able to provide work on their terms. And that's something that we're really trying to harness is instead of saying, hey, you're contingent, you go in this category, or you're an IC, it's, hey, you're going to provide work. We're going to figure out the best way to accommodate you being able to provide us work and to pay you for it. And so in my mind, the categories will always be an important compliance box to check. But I think really breaking down the walls between those categories and looking at providers of work as the entity to which we need to cater our hiring. We need to stop saying, okay, we've got FTEs and we've got we even changed our name from external workforce to extended workforce because external even felt very like them, us.
There's a line, right?
Yeah. So I really see it as being a critical lever in a lot of cases, especially in public accounting and professional services. You don't always have the skill set on demand. And sometimes you need to pull in somebody temporarily to see if you're going to build a new practice. So I see it as evolving more away from that old school temp to employers recognizing that this is just another manner in which work is going to get done in their organization, and they've got to figure out ways to make that happen.
Yes, absolutely. And you actually took me back for a second, because I remember when I broke into the space, we would call it temp, and in Texas we say temp, like, with the twang to it. But that's absolutely the case, right? It really is evolving.
It was even a verb, right? You were temping.
You were temping. Yeah. That's absolutely what it was called. And I think that's been like the forefront of like so many different larger, staffing companies were built around that model. And it was temp and personnel, temporary personnel. And now it's really evolved into contingent and agile labor.
Right.
I love what you guys are doing. I think nomenclature is a big thing. And it's the extended workforce that complements the overall objectives that
100%.
the company is looking to have. Yeah.
We can't go to market without them. Why are we gonna try to separate it?
It is a necessitated force, and it's actually getting better track when it comes to data. And I think that companies the last 10 years have made big strides in understanding what their spend is, what they're allocating. And one of those things that's certainly at the forefront, because we know that extended workforces are here to stay. They're going to probably grow. They're going to make up potentially a majority of the organizational workforce makeup that we see now, but at the forefront of what we see when we talk about the future of work, definitely extended workforce is there, but it's also globalization and how that's enabled through different technologies. And I know that you guys are tapping into different global markets.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening in on the show today and they are considering going global, or maybe they are global, kind of, like we got a couple of pockets here and there, could you give them any advice in terms of what are some considerations to think about when you're growing out a global workforce?
Yeah, I was asking a colleague in the industry, Sienna Alexis, a couple of years ago, and she said, get yourself a good AOR. Find a good shepherd, a good partner to shepherd you in areas where you don't have a solid understanding of the landscape. And that's really rung true to me. And I think that, I come with this whole attitude of I got 20 years of expertise behind me. I can do this in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I got it.
In the U.S. Period.
I don't know that I know everything enough to do it as well as I want to elsewhere. So I think it's recognizing when to lean on outside partners to help guide you in those expansions. Part of what we have been really focused on is establishing partnerships as soon as possible, right? Mm-hmm. If we're looking to go into a market with our program, we're going to be having conversations with providers in that market before we even start to scale up our program. Mm-hmm. Because we need to have trusting and trustworthy partners on the ground there who've got experience, who've got the knowledge and the expertise, and who we feel can really, like I said, shepherd us through that region in a way that's going to make sure we tick those compliance boxes, but that we're doing best by the talent in the area. That culture piece, It's so important. Every region that we're in is totally different. Yeah. And so having partners that can help interpret that for you and help give some of the, I don't know if you remember when Michael Scott on The Office was taking a trip to Canada, and he was talking through these different cultures, and he's like, this is how you would do it in this country. Doing it better than that, but having somebody really identify for you what's going to be successful with the people within the region.
So definitely leaning in on your in-country SMEs and maybe that compliance layer that's actually helping you navigate.
Yeah, the partner stack is critical.
Yeah. The one thing that I've definitely picked up on, I think with the turn of globalization from my own vantage point, I was pretty much like, holy shit, people do things a lot differently everywhere around the world, and especially on how government bodies actually protect certain worker
Sure.
classes, comparatively speaking to the American counterpart. So I can definitely relate. But you touched on something that I want to double down on for a second,
Sure.
and that's building a culture and building a culture when there is so many different ways that culturally work is procured or work is valued or work is conducted. You've got certain regions within APAC that have different characteristics. Certainly the same case around EMEA and
Hmm.
LATAM, and then parts of Africa. So how have you created a semblance of so many different cultures to align to company values to kind of bring
Sure.
that together?
Sure. So the company that I work for, the values are pretty straightforward in creating a really inclusive environment for all of the workers. And that does not end with the FTEs. It is anybody, like I said, anybody who provides work for our organization can be expected to be treated in a similar manner with respect and with integrity and all of those great things. For us, I think part of the game plan always is leave the hubris at the door, right? Like tell my toddler, like we're going to put on our listening ears and we're going to go in knowing that those cultural differences are just that. They're just differences. They're not worse. They're not,
Yeah.
they may sound better, right? Like in some cases, like I would love to live in some of those other countries, just in terms of like how those workers are cared for. We find that like sometimes here we're like, ugh, what a pain. We have to honor this worker's contract and that's a financial. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's their livelihood. So we go in with a little bit more respect about the culture and and like I said, like really just check the attitude and the ego at the door. I know a lot about the U.S., but I also know that it's just a way of doing things. And if we're going to be really culturally not just sensitive or aware, but like really be a good fit for those employees, we have to recognize that this is a valuable way of work in that region. And how can we make it work for us? Not how do we fit them into our box? Not how do we scale what we've got and make them do what we're doing. That's not going to happen, right? Our transition over to India. Oh, surprise, there's a monthly time card. We didn't really know that. And we're like, how do we even take that into account when factoring an hourly rate to meet our reporting? Stuff like that and saying, okay, well, this isn't worse. It's a challenge. And we really have a lot of respect for those differences because, man, I'll tell you, there are more countries that are different than they are alike with regards to labor. We make the joke about just don't open a contingent labor program in France. It's impossible. But it's impossible because of how workers are valued in that society,
Yeah.
and it's in a different way than how they're valued here. So truly just putting on our listening ears and going in and like I said, finding those partners to help be that interpreter. I think the interpreter is a big key to the success there. Sometimes we think we understand what's being said and we're not. We're missing the point or we're missing the context. So having somebody to help fill in those gaps for us as a partner versus in those sort of business meetings has been really helpful in bringing clarity to what our next several steps should be to be successful in that region.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've given like whoever this listener is that's thinking about going global or going global and it's somewhat doing it, hobbling on one leg, and we've all been there. Hey,
Right.
the biggest thing is like look at the compliance and maybe some
Sure.
in country partners that can help you absorb what these compliance and statutory requirements are, and then really building that. I think gaining that awareness and just educating the team on these are the differences that we're going to be confronted with somebody in India
Yes.
versus somebody in LATAM versus
Right.
somebody in France. And then how do we actually recognize that so that we can create a symbiotic culture that's aligning?
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
and,
So,
and it's outsourcing. There's
yeah,
outsourcing has got to be an important part of that equation because there's nobody here who can do every country and know every country. And if there are, like, congratulations, you're one of 10 people. But know your partners, lean into your partners. They're very, very valuable.
yes, hallelujah to that. Yeah, and I think the ones that are, really screaming from the mountaintops that they're everything for everyone is probably where you got to put some
Yeah,
red flags up and say,
yeah,
like, let's take a second here to understand what the specializations are.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Because
is
we'll
there
find
any?
out eventually, right? We'll know. We'll know if that was, you truly can do
We'll,
everything,
we'll,
right?
we'll figure that out
Yeah,
eventually. Here comes audit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We laugh, but it's totally serious. As somebody, and this is what I think. I have a theory. I think that a lot of countries do things similarly, and I think that the US has really been on this own kind of like monotonous way of doing things.
Yeah.
So this was like 5 or 7 years ago when I started to discover monthly time cards. Severance? What is that?
Statutory, yep. Work contract, labor contracts. Like,
Yeah. You mean forced maternity leave?
oh, okay. Bend my rubber arm, twist my rubber arm. Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, those are all so different. And I think France and so many other different markets out there are actually pretty outright not friendly when it comes to contingent labor. So knowing, what countries out there have very negative oversight on contract labor, external labor, contract assignments, short or fixed assignments is certainly half the battle. And we'll see where those countries end up prevailing in the future because this is such a necessitated part of the workforce overall. I think that you have to evolve or die kind of thing.
100%, 100%.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so this next part of the podcast I'm really excited about is what we wanted to do is utilize AI as much as we could. So what I did was I grabbed your LinkedIn profile and I dropped it in ChatGPT. And I said, I'm going to be interviewing Lizzie in this podcast. ChatGPT, what is a question that I could ask Lizzie during our show? And this is actually something that we're going to try to do with each one of these.
I think this is great. I love it.
It's kind of creepy, but it's kind of great, right? We're kind of getting both feelings there. Okay, good. So this is our AI generated question for Lizzie Parnell. If ChatGPT, AI, Copilot, Perplexity, what was the latest one that came from China a couple of weeks ago? If any of them can solve a talent problem or one major challenge, that thing that's keeping you up maybe at 3 a.m. sometimes in managing your extended workforce. They said external, by the way. ChatGPT said external, not extended. So we're going to have to talk to ChatGPT. So if they could manage one part of your extended workforce, what would that be? Let's pretend we had a wand.
I think it would be giving insight into all of the various ways in which people are truly trying to approach work. Yeah. And then providing the true playbook on this is so my style, but the minimum requirements needed to be able to hire that person in that capacity to do that work. And I think you and I were on a panel together a year ago, and I was like, co-employment's a myth, da 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 da. And I just remember you laughing down at the other end. And it's not a myth, right? But if we could use AI to be like, it's kind of a myth. We've been talking about it, but we don't really have a lot of litigation outside of the handful of litigation we always reference when we're talking about classification. Here's really what happens, and here's really who gets audited and why, and here's really how you can approach these workers. I remember when we were starting to consider direct sourcing, and I was like, a community. And I was like, no job seeker gives a shit about a community. They want to know what's open. What community am I trying to build? Here's what's open. And also, we are a cool place to work. But here's what's open. Does this meet your skills? And helping, I'm now creating a laundry list of things I want AI to do. Help my internal organization go ahead and get there with skills-based hiring, right?
Ooh,
so that we can really say, are you a match? I do know enough people who've gotten married off of dating apps at this point that I feel like we should be better at finding various workers through various channels and being like, this is the person for this output. Yeah. And they need to be paid this way. Here's how you're going to make that happen. That's what I want AI to do.
Yeah, that's it.
No big deal, right?
Let's take it from the top then. So you would love for them to be some kind of compliance, like an agent that's saying, hey, really, this is what we always reference, or statutorily speaking, this is what the law says, but this is what the cases relative to those laws have shown. Exactly. Right, so that's one thing. The other thing is actually aligning and identifying talent to some of the requisitions. And then the third one is almost like a skill-based approach of utilizing the skill sets that some of these candidates have and finding them more conveniently for some of the requisitions.
Absolutely.
Omni-channel.
Omni-channel.
That's it.
Omni-channel, and then show me what ticket do I need to punch for them to get here. So straightforward. Come on, AI, get with it.
We're going to transcribe this podcast and I'm going to be like, Lizzie said this. And you I'm going to see if I can send it to you. So
I know that ChatGPT can write me a good global supplier strategy. I don't think ChatGPT can do this for me yet. And I
This one's a
Yeah.
little tough. It might come
It's a
back
little
to some
tricky.
questions.
So many layers.
Some layers, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's pretty funny. But I do think that there's a lot to be said in terms of having like AI understand our data and actually prompt maybe
Yeah,
internal audiences on how to utilize it. It's funny because I was on
absolutely.
another episode with Pratik at MasterCard, and that's what he's building. He's building like this agent that's going to help his hiring manager say, this is IC friendly, this is W-2 friendly, this can be utilized in this country, these are the suppliers. So
I'll
it's like, boom,
invest.
boom,
I'll
boom, boom,
invest,
boom.
Pratik.
Yes, yes. Shout out to Pratik
Yeah,
Patel.
for real. That sounds amazing. And
Yes.
if I could get AI to like help my internal people update their internal profiles so that we could do better skills matching internally with our FTEs
Ooh,
also.
yes.
But
Yeah.
that's like harder than contingent, right?
Yeah. No.
That's why people go contingent
Definitely.
because they're constantly updating their resumes. Internal people are not.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true. I
There
think
are a
we're
lot
on
of
the
problems that
tangent.
I would like to solve.
Yes, yes. That was like six. That was half a dozen right there.
I know, I'm sorry.
We're
I'm
on
sorry.
our way. We're well on our way. But it is pretty exciting to know that AI is headed and making some big changes.
Hmm.
How the current workforce is going to be skilled or upskilled to sustain the growth that AI is projected to do, I think is like next week's episode, right?
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But let's kind of shift gears here a little bit.
Okay.
I want to kind of get to know Lizzie a little bit personally. And for the listeners or the viewers that are tuning in today, she's a badass and she's a mama. She's got a beautiful girl. Any, you know, stories that you want to tell, or maybe for some other fellow listeners that are tuning in, maybe younger women in their career, younger moms that are really trying to figure this out. If there's ever been like a tough leadership lesson that you've learned as a woman in this space or as a mom in this space. And this is a good time to be vulnerable, which I know, like,
Oh,
who am I
oh,
telling?
listen.
Right?
I was made for these kinds of questions because I also have like probably a baker's dozen things I would like to respond on this. But I think for me, my recommendation is going to be for women who maybe don't have families but have other women on their teams. And it is be the female leader that you always wish you had, right? That never gave you a break for having a shitty day, like that you know you felt like you couldn't be vulnerable, that you felt like you couldn't have an honest and direct conversation about your salary.
Mm-hmm.
um, my husband is currently working with a woman on his team who is pregnant and is miserable, like miserable. And this morning he's like, yeah, she just didn't show up for some calls. And I was like, yeah, I bet she feels like shit. And he's like, well, but like she still has to do her work. And I was like, or maybe your company needs to take into account that when they hire women of childbearing ages, that they need to do a better job of assuming that that woman's not going to be at 115% for her entire pregnancy because she's growing a human being. And like maybe that needs to be part of our like cultural reassessment
Yeah.
of the input that we ask for from. And I'm like, I know it feels like a pain in your ass, but also having a baby is way worse than like getting yelled at for missing a meeting. So like I'm on her side. Team pregnant lady on your team. Yeah. So being that kind of boss, I have a gal on my team who just went on mat leave, and I'm like, all right, so you're feeling crappy now. We're gonna kind of lower you to 80%, and by the time you're a month out, I want you at like a good 15-20% productive time during your week. And she's like, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to handle that. I'm like, trust me, you will. I was there and building a new program. I was hired at 4 months pregnant by my current
Wow.
employer,
That is
and they knew it.
so awesome.
I knew it, and I came in and
Wow.
started a new program and went on mat leave like 4 months later, 5 months later, and was gone for 5 months because that's the kind of benefit that they give at my company, which is great. It's still not as good as just some countries' mandatory leave, like we were
I
talking
know.
about, but we
Yeah.
won't talk about that. It is great in the industry that I'm in, and I remember being like, there were some days where I just would go and lay down on the couch and feel so guilty as a pregnant woman. I was growing a baby. There's a study, they say that like growing a baby, like the last like several months of pregnancy is like the energy equivalent of running a marathon every 3 days.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. So like,
That makes so much sense. Like it adds up. So you know what? When I my first pregnancy, I would find. Well, I worked in the office at that time. I
the
would
worst.
find like a corner of the accounting and finance teams,
The
it was
quiet
like a
area.
desert, like an office desert, and I would go under a desk and I would sleep. It was like I could not
You were
take it.
exhausted.
Yeah, I
And
couldn't take it.
And this myth of the woman doing everything all the time at 100+% and being a badass, like constantly, is a little bit bullshit. And we as women are responsible for dispelling that myth because we actually know how hard that is, right? So as women leaders, and I was at a conference and they were like, oh God, I wish my leader was like that. I'm like, just become that leader. Just start doing that. Become that leader. Assume that the people that work for you are very smart and very dedicated. And if they're not, then you've got some things to look at yourself as a manager, right? Like, but cut those human beings some slack and treat them the way that you would want to be treated. And it will pay back like tenfold, right? This gal on my team, she couldn't get herself down to 20%. I knew she couldn't. She loves what she does, but she did find time to focus on really critical strategic conversations, and then she would go take a nap. And so we got like the best of her brain while she was very busy growing a child. So I would just say, ladies, be the leader that you think would be the kind of leader that could change someone's life.
Is so
And then
incredibly.
have a baby or don't. I don't care. I had one at 42. I sometimes regret that decision because I am so tired. But just we gotta start taking care of each other better.
You have just like like so many like different layers. Whoever's like actually watching this podcast is going to see me like be like boop, 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 like my brain just every time that you said something. It really is inspiring. If there's one thing that I'm very grateful for, it's the fact that I've been in a position where we can be that type of leader and we can try to.
It's great. It's so fulfilling to be that kind of leader. It feels really good.
It does. It does. Yeah. It absolutely does. Although I would say that it's so hard to work with the guilt aspect of it. I remember that when I was pregnant with Sebastian and we were like you were launching a program, I was like trying to launch a company, right? I did not give myself any grace. Like I was, well, first of all, I was nauseous for like 6 months. It was like one of those pregnancies that I could not even keep anything down. I actually lost weight. My mom would look at me, she'd be like, you look so terrible. You look like you're dying. Give me your face. You suck me.
Oh, you gotta love those Latin moms. They really know how to hold back, right?
I'm like, gosh, Mom. It's going to be a boy. And I'm like, oh, she totally called it. It was totally a boy. But like, it was dealing with that. And then like, by the time I had him, like, I couldn't actually like succumb myself to resting. And I would just go at it. And I'd go back into meetings and stuff. So I think that there's a lot that we can do to help other women not be their own worst enemy in that and give them some grace, right?
Stop giving them a gold star for doing it. Stop applauding that, right? Like, be like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that to yourself? And you don't need to. No offense, you're an important person, but if there's something that can't happen without you for a couple of months, then fundamentally, man, we gotta take a look around. But yeah, I think that like just saying, hey, we're just not gonna reward that kind of behavior as ideal anymore. Mm-hmm. We're gonna reward that behavior as corporate-driven, unnecessary guilt, and just like, psh,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Ditch it.
That's actually a good thing to keep in mind, is not to reward that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
When you see it, when you call it out, and it's not just for women, but like everyone. Everyone gets to that point where they're at the exhausted state, and it's good to just kind of let them walk away and say, you've got to go. Like, this can wait. We all like have our whys behind the scenes in our career, and having to try to juggle both, it needs to be built into like the culture, needs to be built into the fact to say, this is not 100% of the time, all the time. We're not built like that.
I think my claim to fame so far on the buyer side of this industry was on a panel last year when I was like, just take a nap, just like everybody just go, and I tell my team members to go take a nap all the time. And they're like, now they're fine with it. But at first they're like, I'm not going to take a nap during the workday. I'm like, why not? You're home. Go take who gives a shit? Go take a nap. I do. If I'm like beat, I'm not going to bring my best for the rest. I'm going to go take a 20-minute nap and then like come back and be like, okay, I can do this.
Compress. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Or just like lay down, like stop, like get off all the tablets.
Get on Instagram. Well, don't get on Instagram.
Ooh,
go for a walk. Go make a meal. Go cook a meal for half an hour. Something.
Yes. You know what? I would have thought that your claim to fame was like when we came up on the panel and you rolled up with the White Claw. And I was like, this is Lizzie Parnell.
That is 100% me. Like 2 p.m. and I was like, what's up, people?
What's up? We're in LA. What's up? Yeah, I love it.
Totally.
That was my first impression of
that. Was so great. That was so great.
Yes. Okay, so next question here. If there was a couple of things that you could reapproach on how companies are dealing with talent, what would that be? Like if you had a wish list item, we talked about what AI could do, right? And maybe this is stemming as a continuation from what
Probably,
AI is,
yeah.
right? But if there's one thing that you could change on how companies are approaching talent today, what would that really be?
Yeah, I think the easiest answer for me on that is like getting back to like brass tacks on like skills based hiring and
Mhm.
skills based like human
Ooh,
consideration
right.
and the upskilling. Right? What keeps people excited and engaged is typically, and there are always going to be some a-holes who are like, I don't want to do anything, and that's fine, right? Like we aren't all meant to work.
Yeah.
500 years ago, some people were just like poets and artists, and they just did it for the greater good, and they had like the philanthropists that paid for, like we don't have that anymore. So you kind of got to work to be able to live.
Uh-huh.
But like acknowledging that people are doing jobs they probably don't love and they're doing it because it's a job and being like, okay, that's okay. We're okay with not having a superstar everywhere. Is there something else that would make that person more excited?
Yeah.
What skill can we help them develop that will make them either a better contributor to the organization that they like to do, not just so we can exploit them for their skills, but really attracting people to caring about professional development, not as a box to check for your annual review, but like maybe I want to become a better listener. There are certainly some classes that you can take out there to truly become better at listening. It's a skill.
Yeah.
Maybe I actually want to get better at Excel. That's like a skill. And recognizing that the skills-based hiring helps managers, assess the work that actually needs to be done and what other soft skills are going to be critical in getting that work completed. But that also makes people feel acknowledged and less like a job description. When you're like,
Yeah.
you're really great at this and you're really great at this. Here's a thing that you need to work on. Here's the plan to work on that thing. Here's what's going to help you get to the next level if you want to go there. Here's what's going to help you go horizontally if you want to go there. There's a series of logical kind of discussions that make people feel happier about being employees because you're truly recognizing these innate or these learned parts of them, and it's like, yeah, I do want to look into that. Or I do. One of the gals on my team, she's like, I really want to look into like industrial psychology. Great, go take a course. Go do it. That sounds amazing. She's like, yeah, no, I didn't like it. I'm like, perfect. We can check that box off. Didn't want to do it. What has been lost? Nothing. You've learned something, and learning what you don't like is just as important as what you do like. And so I think for organizations to nurture, we're already kind of there nurturing the whole self, the ENGs or ERGs or the DEI programs, the whatever that's trying to nurture whole selves. There's also a component of nurturing like the worker that you want there and the worker that you want that person wants to be. And they may be doing it for themselves, right? You may not need to. They may be a freelancer and they're doing continuing education to keep themselves honed because it's a better competitive advantage. Great. Why are we not doing that for our internal talent? Why are we not making them feel valuable enough that they are worth the investment, even if it doesn't work, even if they don't love it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think for going back to the idea of skills as valuable versus a job description or a quantifiable something.
This is the
Yeah.
box and you've
Part
got
of
to
a
fit into
resume.
it. Right.
It's
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of viewing that whole person, and that is a thing that I wish I knew how to direct change on that in a way that people would be open to doing it, because it would be hard to measure. That's going to be like a slow burn. That's hard to measure success on out of the gate.
Well, I think it's actually like it's going to become a necessitated force to deal with. That's something that we all are going to have to reckon, is identifying that the current workforce is not going to meet or have the skills that we need
Right.
to pace where technology is headed. So there's that, right? So there's this
Yeah. Which
environment
is
that
terrifying.
we're validating this. The World Economic Forum came out with that study. And then there's also this workforce that is somewhat demanding, and especially with millennials and Gen Zers, right? That's the alphas are like
You got it.
the low,
Alpha's like the
newest
little
ones.
ones now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still not on work yet, right?
Yeah.
But like
They should be.
they value it more than health insurance.
No
It's crazy.
kidding.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
crazy that they want to learn. They want to continually learn. They want to be shown like they're being invested in. They
Right.
would love to
Exactly.
know where their skill sets are and where, like, how do they actually define and discover their purpose. Like that is more tangibly focused and important to that type of workforce. They would
Absolutely.
look you up on your social media page, see what your stand is on a certain topic that they're passionate about, and decide to go with you or not. That's
Absolutely.
what's happening in the world around us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, focusing on people as whole, and I think that's kind of like the underlying current for me, right? Like focusing on people that are as whole and self-sufficient and needing some type of validation is the approach we're taking with global expansion. It's the approach I would take internally with employees. I think it just is getting away from words like contingent and resources, and it's like these are human beings providing work.
So
Like it's not. I mean, but it's really like
yeah,
duh.
that was actually true. Yeah, they are humans. Yep, they have
They're
life.
not resources.
Yeah,
They're not resources. You're like, and I tell my team, I'm like, I love you guys. I hope you never leave. This is a job. I recognize this is your job. I am not, you're not my family. I am not your family. We're not going to play that game. If you don't want to work at your job today, you shouldn't have to work at your job today. It's your job. It's how you go and buy things and do the things that you want to do in your life. I happen to love what I do to a degree that my husband thinks is sociopathic, like up and down. He thinks I'm insane. Most people don't love their jobs. And that's something that's important for organizations to recognize. This is a pathway to livelihood, not a pathway to contributing to my bottom line. And as soon as I start thinking about the human beings that are the resources, I think we can take a little bit of a better approach at making people happier.
oh, I love it.
Could you imagine, like, at your Thanksgiving table, if you're like, thanks, resource, for making the mashed potatoes, we're going to be like, no.
Resource number 3, that was
Yeah.
delicious. Did you put
We're gonna
parmesan in these?
need to have a meeting about the apple pie crust.
That's,
Not flaky enough.
it is so incredibly true. So I think in this technologically advanced world, it's coming together and being the innately human being and person that we are contributing to the overall project is what I'm taking away.
It's the only way we're going to beat the robots.
It's
I'm
the
just
only
kidding.
way.
I can't believe I just said that. I'm just kidding. I really.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be the clip of the.
Oh God, the thing that I like know the least about with technology.
It's the
We
robot.
gotta beat the robots. Be humans.
Okay, so I have like one other question for you, and it's somewhat of a surprise question. So
Okay.
note to everyone that this is Leaders Unfiltered, not Leaders Unscripted. So Lizzie kind of had an idea what I was going to ask, but she didn't have an idea about this last one.
Oh, terrific. What you
And
got?
I actually thought about it throughout the episode. So here it is, hot off the press. All right, so pretend that you are on the supplier side, right? The lens of a supplier. This is Lizzie, like, just came from New Orleans, but it's 2025, right? She's
Okay.
seeing all these shifts happening, direct sourcing, like her staffing agency trying to tackle globalization. What else we have going on? Oh, nearshoring and offshoring models, internal talent pools being built. Like, what advice do you give to that supplier that's listening in on today's show in terms of how quickly, and then there's like this little thing called AI, right? And all the admin and clerical jobs that are supposed to be eliminated. Do you have any advice to the suppliers out there that are living this day and age and knowing where the direction of the market is going?
I don't know that I have a lot of good advice on the suppliers in terms of the direction of the market. I do know that if you take into account the same level of humanity for your job seekers, right? If you know you're not going to be able to place them, you know who your competitors are, you know where other agencies are, tell them where else to go and shop for jobs. Let them know that I do not have every client in this area, and you're gonna have your best luck by going and really getting out there and marketing yourself. And I would say that's how you're going to build a better brand in the marketplace for the talent. Mm-hmm. And the brand in the talent marketplace is starting to, I think, make more of a difference. Mm-hmm. If you start to look up reviews on Google, which is so easy to do.
100%.
Like, we work with suppliers that run the gamut, like international to like a dude and like his 3 cats.
That's what it's about, man.
Right?
That dude and his 3 cats love his candidates.
That dude, no, like his people have probably met the cats. Like, that dude knows what's going on in their lives. He's traffic copying them to other agencies. He's letting them know well in advance when he thinks something's going to happen or not. And I think it's that level of humanity. And I would say that also agencies look for buyers that are willing to treat you as humans as well. We have been very supplier friendly and very supplier focused because, like I mentioned at the very top of this podcast, mm-hmm. the partnership is what's going to help us be successful in and out in a new market, shepherding us through the cultural and sort of compliance, landscape, finding buyers and kind of demanding a certain level of respect as a partner. I know it's hard to do. There's always going to be an agency who's like, I just need the business. But like being able to say, you know what, I have other partners that treat me and my contingent folks better, and I'm going to continue to focus my efforts there. Yeah. And really holding buyers accountable. I think that there are a lot of buyers out there who maybe don't have the same like breadth of experience. They weren't the job seeker walking into the staffing agency looking for a temp job in 2005.
Yep.
And they may not realize like the levels of people that are involved in making this work. But at the end of the day, these huge global programs are about aligning a person to work, to livelihood, to performance by that company. And if we continue as suppliers to demand that level of integrity and respect from our relationships, I think that that's going to just make it better for the talent experience in general. Be good to your talent and demand that your partners that you on the buyer side are aligned with are also good to your talent and good to you as a provider. Oh, just maybe you make the whole experience. Maybe I'm like a little too kumbaya for this world. I don't know.
No, but I actually think that was excellent advice, actually. So I think the supplier this day and age is going to have to take a step back and be absolutely human-centric. The differentiator with them in their candidate pool is knowing their niche, knowing their candidates, and knowing when to say, this is not going to be for us. Let me connect you to some other agencies.
Absolutely.
But to that side, it's also knowing when to walk away, right? When to walk away from business deals. And if you're not in that position and, hey, I can understand and relate to that because you need the growth, then I think this also comes with like understanding that there's going to be some secondary implications that could potentially play there for your business overall.
Yeah, I mean, we can't always have the most perfect relationships, right? But I don't know. I think that we are in a place now. Everyone's like, "Oh, the AI is coming."
The AI.
It kind of puts the onus on us as human beings to be really communicative about our human experience through all of these processes, or we are just going to get kind of drowned out by the AI. It's just going to be all Indeed AI matching, and it's going to be crap. No one's going to be happy.
Everything really is like your reputation. Like, totally.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to beat the robots.
It's how we're going to beat the robots. Oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed for myself for having.
No, this has been amazing, Lizzie. What an honor it is to have you on our show.
Oh, it's been so fun, Angela. I think so highly of you. I think you are like the true badass, and you are the one that like sets that bar so high. So having grace for yourself is a great model for the women around you. You're just one of the most amazing people in this industry. So thank you for asking me to join this.
Most of the time, I feel like I'm tripping over that bar and kind of falling on my face. But hey, that's what this is about, right?
Yeah. Hey.
But anyways, I really want to thank you, and also for being one of our first guests. Thank the listeners for tuning in and being part of this fun adventure with Lizzie and I today. Lizzie, you are truly a gift and absolutely gifted along the way.
Oh, you are.
Thank you for being on the show. This was so much fun, and listeners as well for tuning in. We will see you guys on the next episode of Leaders Unfiltered. Thanks, everyone.